1 o'clock, I'm going off stage. I'll take Donna and Ann backstage, and we're going to share the screen, and Ian's going to get going. So
bye,
thanks, everybody.
Right. Sounds good.
Bye.
See you soon, folks. All right. Oh, we already have some people using the emojis down below. That's so exciting. All right, awesome. Okay, cool. Jess, do you just want to send me a message when you're ready for me to take off? Or are we starting right at 1 o'clock? Are we good to go? Is the room filling up? Let's do it. Okay, fantastic. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to AccelerateOTT Virtual here in 2020. I hope many of you are joining us now for the third time as we've been doing these weekly Thursday virtual sessions for AccelerateOTT. And I'm also excited to be here and kind of hosting our double header today with a keynote and a panel. My name is Liam Flanagan, and to answer two questions at the same time, I am the program coordinator here at Invest Ottawa. And also, yes, I am wearing this suit to look fancy for this event. My coworker and one of the organizers of the event, Lucy, told me to do it because I just got married in this suit a couple weeks back. And she saw that and she was like, oh my God, it'd be so great for the event. So please, congratulations in the chat and emojis all around. Would love to see that for my support. Speaking of which, the chat, my role here today is to tell you all about the flow of today's event with the agenda, the tools we'll be using here on venue.live, as well as the general other things that we'll need to talk about, like our sponsors. So we'll start today with the agenda. We're going to kick things off with a welcome from one of our scale sponsors, the Trade Commissioner Service and Canadian Technology Accelerators. We have Andrea Clements to do that, which will be very, very fun at the very beginning. Following this, we'll have I will introduce the intrepid Donna Ronayne, our marketing expert advisor here at Invest Ottawa, who will then introduce Ann Handley, our keynote for the 1 to 2 p.m. Session, Storytelling in a Chaotic World. Ann Handley, of course, best-selling author, known for many, many things, fantastic speaker, and all-around great person for you to hear from. So I'm very excited for you folks to hear about the keynote. Following that, at around 1:45 or so, we'll have a short Q&A, time permitting, with Ann. That will be moderated by Donna. And then we'll move on to our panel discussion from 2 to 3 p.m. about moving on up, growing from startup to scale up with the founders of 3 of our newest scale up clients here at Invest Ottawa, NAC, Relogix, and RVeasy. We're very excited to talk with them as well. I know there's some companies I've worked with a couple of the founders already through the scale up program. Should be a lot of fun. And we'll hopefully also end that with a Q&A from the audience. After that, I'll come back on stage. I'll say closing remarks, thanks again to the sponsors, and we'll move into a quick breakout networking session. So for 3 minutes, you'll be paired randomly with another attendee or speaker of the event. I know I'm going to be there, so if you want to chat with me for 3 minutes, please stick around to the very end, or someone else from the event. There's a lot of interesting people today. Hopefully some interesting people will be in the chat, and you can stick around the end and speak with them all. So it should be a lot of fun. That's the agenda for today. If you have any questions, again, throw them in the chat. I'll be there all day interacting with you folks. Should be super fun. Now, moving forward onto the next slide, I'd like to thank our sponsors for today. We have a lot of amazing sponsors. Of course, we have TCS, as mentioned earlier, as a scale sponsor, and they're there with Simple Story. We also have our Grow sponsors, Logan Katz, National Bank, and Telfer at University of Ottawa. We have our Build sponsor, which is Shopify, and our launch sponsors of MDK Business Law, MNP, Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, and Carleton University. So a lot of different organizations are coming together to make this possible today. And I'm so, so happy that they could to help us make this happen, along with all of you who are attending. Of course, you're just as important, don't worry. But thank you, huge thank you to our sponsors for making AccelerateOTT possible at all. On to our next slide. Don't forget, so this is our second last session of AccelerateOTT. There's another one next Thursday. That will be our, I believe, our final virtual session for AccelerateOTT. Maybe there's a secret one. Maybe there's more news to come. But essentially, our next one will be about navigating remote work, managing the human aspects of high growth tech companies with Shauna Moran, the founder of Operate Remote. Shauna is an expert on this subject, and she can talk about remote work, which all of us are familiar with now on a kind of longer term than we ever were before, but she can talk about some of the things that we maybe haven't been thinking about quite as much. And that session will also include Wendy Knight-Agard from Shopify to moderate the session. So November 5th, next Thursday, also my birthday, should be fantastic. 1 to 2 p.m. will be super, super fun. And that will be followed up immediately by another Scale Up panel. So this one will be about the same kind of topic, but instead we're looking at ENPS, so Employee Net Promoter Scores. Lynn Stevens, the principal of Lynn Stevens Consulting Services, HR expert and fantastic consultant, will be leading a session with more CEOs and HR directors of some scale-ups here locally in Ottawa to talk about how they were able to achieve successful employee net promoter scores within their companies, how they were able to keep their employees satisfied and energetic throughout a pandemic that everyone's been going through. So that should be a lot of fun as well. Again, really excited to hear all these folks chat about their teams and what they like about working in their teams. So November 5th, mark it on your calendars. You can go to AccelerateOTT.ca to RSVP today. So now we move into virtual chat ground rules. We're using a very fun platform today. I mentioned it before, venue.live. Should be a lot of fun. We've got actually the CEO and COO, Jason and Frank, here on the call with us today throughout, so you can say hi to them in the chat. And we're excited to be using this Canadian platform to have fun with this event. And as I mentioned, the chat is open. On the right-hand side of your screen, you should see 2 speech bubbles. Hope I'm pointing the right way. It's one of those ways. And you can click in there and you can send messages out to the broader community. I'll be in there helping to chat with people all day. So it should be really fun. Let's be respectful. Let's cheer on the speakers. Again, I see some people doing it already, but there's 4 emojis below me and below the slide. You can click those to show your support for the speakers throughout the session. Claps, hearts. I'm happy I'm not getting any thinking faces right now. I don't know why I would be at this point. We'll save those for later. Save those for, oh no, go Streisand effect in full effect today. But yes, so be respectful. That's the chat. The question mark immediately below that you will see is where you can submit questions. For the Q&A portions of our keynote and panel today, I'll ask that everyone submit their questions into that question box rather than into the chat function. Because there is where Donna, who's moderating and looking at the questions, will be looking to see your questions that are in there. You can look now. I don't think there's any questions in there just yet, but when there is, you can upvote the ones that you enjoy and hopefully get your questions to the top, and Donna will focus on those. You can also click your initials or your face in the top right of your screen, and you can change your title. And you can see that's what I've done. You can see my name, my title, my Twitter link, and my LinkedIn link. So then hopefully people can connect with you if they like what you're saying or if there is interest from the networking session. So that should be really, really fun. And yeah, I guess that's everything from me in the very, very beginning. I've just spoken a lot. I've delivered you a lot of content even to start. So really, really fun. Happy to be a part of this, and I will see you folks at the end and actually just after our first speaker as well. And so to start things off, let's bring on our first speaker to give a welcome address, Andrea Clements from the Trade Commissioner Service and Canadian Tech Accelerators. Take it away, Andrea.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us here today. As mentioned, my name is Andrea Clements, and I'm the Director of the High Intensity Services Division at Global Affairs Canada. So my group is responsible for helping identify new and innovative solutions for the TCS, the Trade Commissioner Service, to help companies do business abroad in a rapidly changing global environment. I'm excited that we're part of day 3 of AccelerateOTT and like to thank our partner, Invest Ottawa. And before I hand it off to the exciting speakers and guest panels, I just want to give you a quick overview of the Trade Commissioner Service. When Canadian companies do business abroad, as many of you know, they become more productive, create more jobs, grow faster, and invest more in research and development. The TCS supports Canadian companies with access to international markets, capital, technology, and talent through funding and support programs, and our extensive network of trade commissioners in more than 160 cities around the world are there to serve you. We are that international piece of the government ecosystem that supports companies in their journeys to success. And I would like to add that our services are free. One of our flagship programs is the Canadian Technology Accelerator Program, which helps high potential, high growth Canadian technology companies accelerate their growth globally by immersing them in key technology hubs. So the three sectors that we focus on are ICT, digital, life sciences, and clean tech. The CTAs are delivered through our embassies, high commissions, and consulates in markets where we've identified a really strong technology ecosystem. So to highlight for you, if you're interested, here are some of the different, you'll see that two are I passed the deadline, but happy to discuss if there's interest, but really want to flag our growth that we've made into Asia. Lots of things happening there. And if there are companies that are interested, please feel free to contact us. Contact information is here. Thanks very much. And please enjoy your day 3 of Accelerate Ottawa.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Yes, I'm back. All right, that was fantastic. Thanks so much, Andrea. I'm excited to learn more. And Andrea, will you be sticking around to the end, or okay, she's gone from the stage. But I believe Lucy has put in the chat a link for where you can go to learn more about the Canadian Technology Accelerator Program. A lot of really interesting stuff coming from there, and I hope some people are able to connect with them. Now I get to do something that is every MC's dream, giving someone who needs no introduction an introduction. And I would like to welcome Donna Ronayne up to the stage with me here today. You may know her from her work with Halogen, of course, and of course, more recently, her excellent work as an advisor with Invest Ottawa. And that's where I know Donna from. Donna, you can take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you, Liam. And I love the suit, by the way. It's gorgeous. You must have had a great wedding. Thank you for the great introduction. And I think the next person up really needs no introduction. I work with a couple of peer groups, marketing peer groups in the city, and I asked them, if you could have anyone in the world come and speak, who would you ask for? And Anne was one of the top choices. And there's no wonder why. Content is king, and I think Anne is the empress of content. She is a Wall Street Journal bestselling author who speaks worldwide about how businesses can escape marketing mediocrity to ignite tangible results. IBM named her one of the 7 people shaping modern marketing. She is Chief Content Officer of Marketing Profs, a LinkedIn influencer, a keynote speaker, a mom, dog person, and writer, and a wonderful person overall. And I'm turning things over to you because I really want to get started here.
All right. Thank you so much, Donna, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, Liam, as well. I need to share my screen, so I am going to do that in a second. Yes. Okay. And hopefully, are you seeing my slide deck? Can someone verbally confirm for me?
We're not seeing it yet. I think we're still waiting. Yeah, so I can't see anything yet. If we could get some messages in the chat, that would be helpful as well. But no, nothing on this side.
Nothing, huh? Okay.
Marissa, no, not yet.
Not seeing it yet. All right. What did I say about live theater?
It's exciting.
Yeah, did I say that?
It was inferred.
All right, entire screen. We're going to do this again. We're going to share. And
yes.
Then we're going to... Okay, now you're seeing it?
Now we are seeing it. Yes, we have more in the chat. And that was a great tactic to get people to engage in the chat. So thank you very much for that subtle little trick to get people more engaged. So totally on purpose, folks. Do not
Totally
worry.
works. How about now? Are you seeing the deck now?
Yes, it looks perfect. We can see just the slide.
Just the slide. Perfect. So you can just see the main slide that I'm presenting on now.
Yep, looks awesome.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry for all of that, but doesn't it kind of make us closer to see just the sort of behind the scenes pain going on? So hi, everybody. I'm Ann Hanley, and Chief Content Officer of Marketing Profs, as Donna so wonderfully said. And today I'm going to talk to you about storytelling in a chaotic world, how all of us can tell stories from a marketing standpoint that better connect with prospects, that better connect with our customers, and that ultimately grow our business, because that's what we are here to talk about today. And it's funny because when I thought about this session today, I was thinking, well, of course, a chaotic world means COVID, right? It means a pandemic. But the more that I thought about this, and the more that I pulled together some stories and examples and a sort of narrative thread for you today, I was thinking to myself, many of the things that I talk about today, or that we are going to talk about today, are also kind of best practices, I think, for any time of stress or any time of chaos in the world. So I don't think this is just pandemic related. I think it applies when you are trying to grow your business. A lot of sort of best practices that I'm going to share today as well. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a story. So this past June, I noticed a small wild rabbit in my backyard. Now, I've had rabbits in my backyard before, but this was the first one that wasn't completely terrified of me. In fact, he let me get within a few feet of him. He was around so much and he was so conspicuous that I actually started to wonder, could I make friends with this rabbit? Could I actually get him to, maybe take something from my hand? Could we be friends? Now, I've been in marketing long enough to think of this as a classic marketing challenge. So I named my prospect Bun. I thought of him as a marketing qualified lead, so to speak. And why is he marketing qualified? Because he's already aware of me, right? He's already on my, wait for it, site. Get it? In the yard. He's already on my site. He's already sort of aware that I exist. So I thought, I love animals. How hard could this be? I'm going to convert Bun. This is my mission for June. So I walked up to Bun and I was like, hey, Bun, I've noticed you've been here 47 times over the past few months. Would you be interested in maybe downloading this white paper? And can I get your email address in case we get disconnected? You know how that goes, right? I was like a chat bot that just like pops up on a website. Bun, not successful, but I was like, that's okay. First touch often isn't successful in marketing, so that's fine. I realized pretty quickly that I needed to entice Bun with something. I needed some kind of content to get him to come toward me. So I thought to myself, what can I try? I am going to try a carrot, which is the food of his people, right? It's the food of rabbits everywhere. And so I relaunched my campaign the very next day, June 17th. It was 10:30 a.m. in the morning. It was a Tuesday. The reason I am telling you all of this information is because I want you to know that I adhered to best practices in marketing outreach. Everybody knows that the most successful marketing outreach is going to happen mid-morning on a day early in the week. Okay. So I'm sitting in my patio seat in a chair on the patio. I am holding out a carrot to Bun, food of his people. Look at Bun, more interested in grazing on the grass there, completely ignored me. I was like, that's okay. Maybe carrots aren't his thing. Let's try celery. Next day, same thing, mid-morning, let's try celery. Bun, again, completely ignored me. I started to notice that on hot afternoons, Bun would spend a lot of time inside this ornamental grass that's right off my patio. This ornamental grass is about, as tall as I am, and it's about 4 times as wide. And Bun would sort of lounge in there, like his legs kind of like side saddle, like a royal, a royal riding side saddle. Like that's kind of how he looked. So he would sit in there, and I thought to myself, okay, carrots didn't work, celery didn't work, and getting Bun to come to me didn't work. So maybe I need to be in his world. Maybe I need to go to him. And again, carrots, celery didn't work. So why don't I just try everything? Why don't I just give it all to him? So I spammed him. I was like, Bun, you choose. I don't know what's going to work. How about lettuce? How about romaine? How about broccoli? Just what do you want? Here, take it all. This giant mound of spam terrified Bun. Like he unsubscribed. He was like, I'm out. I don't know what you're doing, but this is not okay. What does this have to do with you, right? Here at AccelerateOTT, you're trying to grow your business. You're trying to figure out a way to engage your customers. What does my Bun story have to do with you? Well, here's the thing. Rabbits are hardwired to not trust people, right? Bun is hardwired to not trust me. He's hardwired to not want to engage with me. And isn't that so often how we feel when we see marketing in our lives? That's how our customers and our prospects are often looking at marketing as well. We see it, and if it feels like marketing, we don't like it, right? Instead, we want something that adds value to our lives. Now, I knew that BUN'S life would be richer and better if he would just allow me to be his friend. But Bun didn't think of it that way, right? Instead, he was allergic. He's hardwired to not trust me. The challenge that I saw was, how can I optimize Bun's buyer journey? How can I actually grow trust? How can I get him to build trust with me? I think the key for me and for all of us in marketing is to slow down a little bit. Not all the time. Our world moves too fast for that, especially in a startup scenario. But I do think there's certain moments where we need to slow down to speed up. So slow down at certain times to accelerate later on. I think the best strategy to do that, the amount of time that we need to spend is so well invested if we think about our story. I think that the best strategy for any business is to think about your story as a cornerstone of any communication, any marketing that we're doing with our prospects and with our customers. Now, there are many, many ways to tell a story, but at its fundamental root, it comes down to this, right? Every story has a hero that we can relate to, right? It has somebody who we think of as ourselves. The hero is not you, and it's not your product or service. The hero is typically your customer. That customer has some sort of challenge that you can help them with. But before they can understand that you need to help them, there's sort of some epic struggle that you need to go through to resolution. I think in these times that we find ourselves doing business in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of, I think, any bit of chaos or crisis, I think that epic struggle is all the more epic, right? Because the outcome is uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when this is going to end. We don't know exactly what's going to go on in the world. And the stakes feel higher, right? Everybody is afraid. Everybody is feeling a little bit more vulnerable. Everybody is feeling a little more raw, right? And so I think the epic struggle to resolution is all the more epic for those reasons. Now, there are two things that don't change, even in the midst of a pandemic and even in the midst of chaos. One is your purpose, right? Why you do what you do, as Simon Sinek would say, right? Why you exist. What you do to help others. And the second thing is, speaking of others, is the hero, the person you speak to best, right? The person that you want to help, the person that your product or your solution or your service ultimately serves is the hero. Those things don't change. But I think that one thing does change. I think the way we tell the story, how we tell the story, does change in the midst of a pandemic. And I think we need to pay attention to that. This is a slow down to speed up moment. We need to pay attention to how we're communicating. I think in marketing and in business, we spend a lot of time trying to break through, right? What are the right tactics I can use to break through, to connect with my customer? But I don't think we want to think about it from this standpoint. It's not about, can I have your attention? Instead, it's, how can I earn your trust? How can I actually earn the kind of trust that will show you the value that I can bring you? Because you can't have that conversation about value without trust. So it's not, can I have your attention? Instead, it's, how can I earn your trust? Now, that's a subtle shift, but I think it's so critical in marketing that we think about it through this lens. I think trust and affinity matter a whole lot in marketing, especially that affinity piece. We all know that we need to get our customers, that we need to earn trust with our customers, but that affinity piece matters a lot too, because this is the lens through which your prospects and your customers and everyone is looking at you when they come to your website, when they come to your social channels, when they sign up for your email, when a chatbot pops up on your website. They're thinking, do they understand my problems best? Are they signaling that trust? Not only now, but will they be there for me long term? And secondly, this is the piece that I think is so critical that we don't spend enough time thinking about. Do I like them? Especially in B2B, in tech, in healthcare, any of those things. Do I like them matters so much more in marketing and in sales than we give it credit for. So is your marketing conveying both of those things? Because this is what your customers are thinking about, your prospects. This is not an optimized marketing strategy, right? Yet this is what so often we in marketing tend to do. We're just like, here, take it. What do you need? You pick. But this is not the right approach, right? Offering everything all at once, even if it's not spam per se, it's just not the right approach. Okay. So maybe you're a little bit like our friend Condescending Cat here, right? And you're thinking about, what does this whole story have to do with my fueling my entrepreneurial fire, which is the reason that we are here together today? And that's what we're going to get into right now. So let's talk about the 6 non-negotiable things that your storytelling and that your story about your brand, about your product, about your service must do now that will deliver trust and affinity, not only for during these COVID times, but I think for years to come. What can we do now to signal that trust and affinity for years to come? Because customers are looking at how we're reacting now, and it does have repercussions long term. Okay, so here we go. The first thing is to think about scaling camaraderie. That affinity is important, but one-on-one is difficult, right? So how do you actually scale that camaraderie? How do you actually create camaraderie at scale? How do you create that affinity at scale? So I was driving down the road and I saw this sign by the side of the road. You know the hut? You have the hut. Underneath it, it said, we know you have pizza because it's in the name. This is an example that I see over and over and over again of corporate-centric messaging, right? And I get it because we're excited about our pizza. We think our pizza is fantastic. We think our pizza is the best thing that anybody has ever tasted. But yet your customer doesn't care about your pizza, right? Instead, your customer cares about the fact that they're hungry. So it's not we have pizza. Instead, it's about what that pizza does for your prospect or for your customer. The COVID script is for 2020 this, right? We are here for you in these unprecedented times. This has been the script that almost every brand out there has issued. Some maybe through a social channel, maybe through email, maybe you have it on your website. We are here for you in these unprecedented times. But I think it's important for us to rethink this. It's not just that we're here for you, you're here for me. How? It's not about just saying it, it's about showing it. It's so important because according to an Edelman survey, 65% of us, meaning not marketers, but us consumers, say that a brand's response in a crisis will have a huge impact on the likelihood of purchasing in the future. How we behave now has long-term repercussions. And the key to that is content. What kind of content are we putting out there? How is that building connections? How is that building that trust and affinity? And is it expressing compassion? Are we not just saying that we are here for you in these unprecedented times, or are we actually showing that compassion for our industry, for our customers, for our prospects? And by the way, I think she's okay, right? Don't you think she is? I'm sure there's there's got to be like an air pillow or something down there. They didn't just, it's got to be fine, right? That's what I think anyway, because otherwise this would have caused a problem. So often I talk to marketers who start their marketing strategy here. They start their story here, right? We need a piece of marketing for. In other words, we have an email that goes out every Thursday because we publish a blog post once a week, because we do a research survey every quarter, whatever the case may be, because we do a webinar, because we have a live event. It's not we need a piece of marketing for. Instead, it's what does your customer need? What does your buyer need? And what can only you give them right now? So it's a different way to think about your marketing. I think that trust and affinity is grounded in what I call pathological empathy for an audience. So not just sort of having a sense of who you sell to and who your target customer is, but actually understanding their motivations, getting inside their skin a little bit. What are their fears? What's their mindset? What's it like for them right now with everybody at home, with homeschooling kids? What's it like right now? It's about thinking about everything from your customer's point of view, from really adopting that customer mindset from the inside out. Toast is a point of sale solution in Boston, Massachusetts. They sell restaurant management solutions to restaurants of all sizes, but particularly to independent restaurants. Now, at the very start of this pandemic back in March, Toast was in a super tough spot because Toast sells to restaurants. And when restaurants had to shut down in March for an extended period of time at the very start of this pandemic, it was a challenge, right? It was a really difficult moment for Toast when their customers basically just the bottom fell out for that industry, for that market. What Toast did is they produced a site, a microsite called Rally for Restaurants. In a 72-hour sprint, they decided on a Friday they were going to do this. Over the weekend, they worked on it. They launched it on a Monday night in time for Tuesday morning. And what you're looking at here is rallyforrestaurants.com. It's the site that Toast produced. If you look at this is the first iteration of it. What it is, it's an interface where people like you and I can go to buy gift cards for our favorite restaurants. Now, why is that important? It's because at a moment when restaurants are closed, the bottom has dropped out, a gift card to your favorite local restaurant is sort of a micro loan to them, right? As it says there, it's a lifeline to them. It allows them to pay some bills during the shutdown. Toast morphed this from a consumer-facing website. Now, remember, they sell to restaurants. They don't usually speak to consumers, but they morphed this from a consumer-facing website to a resource center for restaurants. How do we navigate COVID-19? How do you get access to government relief funds? That kind of thing. So it's now two parts of it. First, consumer-facing, help restaurants out. Second part, help restaurants navigate this whole situation that they find themselves doing business in. They got tons of great love for this by the press. This is from March. It was in TechCrunch. And you might be thinking, Toast is a billion-dollar company. They are so well-funded. What does this have to do with me? Well, here's what I like about it. There was no immediate payoff for Toast, right? Their efforts to speak to consumers and sort of rally consumers around helping their favorite local establishments was an act of generosity for their community. And in doing so, they were signaling, they weren't just saying we are here for you in these unprecedented times. They were signaling to the restaurant community that we are here for you without actually sending out an email and just saying that, right? So this is a great example, I think, of scaling camaraderie. They're saying we are with you in this and we are going to get through it. They did a number of other things to signal to restaurants that they were there for them. They waived fees for a while. They opened up their platform to non-Toast customers. They allowed them to access some of their applications that enabled takeout and curbside delivery services, even if you weren't a Toast customer. So it's a great way, I think, of signaling that peer-to-peer instead of brand to target. It's not about selling to your target audience. Instead, it's about building relationships. It's peer-to-peer. And they did it so beautifully at scale through their actions. Now, since then, Rally for Restaurants has continued to evolve its messaging. It's continued to evolve its content as restaurants reopen for delivery, for example, as we're now seeing some dining rooms open, and as we now are heading into the fall and the climate is getting colder, weather is turning a little bit. They're helping restaurants navigate these new challenges in their industry. It's scaling camaraderie. It's thinking about things from the customer mindset. Even if there's no immediate payoff, I think this trust is to pay off for Toast long-term for years to come. Throughout everything that Toast does, it's such a welcome effort, right? So everything that they do, they're scaling camaraderie. Tyler, who writes the email newsletter for Toast, Tyler Camella, writes On the Line, which is the email newsletter for Toast. And the way that they communicate, this is so important. It's the way they communicate, not just that they're saying we are there for you, but it's dust yourself off. We've got an industry to rebuild, right? The we in there, I think, is so key. It puts Toast in line of being a partner to their restaurants. They're saying, we will help you do this. And I also just love that sort of pathological empathy of that. You know, they're just understanding the mindset of their client restaurants, right? Or of their restaurants in their community. You'll have to navigate a new world where safety and social distancing rule. This was back in May, when restaurants were starting to reopen again. Make sure you're prepared to reopen for on-premise dining. Involves much more than just revisiting your cleaning protocol, right? It's really putting themselves in the mindset of the restaurant who's kind of freaking out because they're trying to figure out, what does reopening mean for me? Yes, we want to reopen, but how do we do it safely? How do we make sure that we are adhering to guidelines? How do we make sure that our employees are safe and our customers are safe as well? So it's really thinking about things from a customer standpoint and speaking in very plain and simple terms to that particular challenge and that particular pain. I talked to Kevin Hamilton just prior to this talk today. He heads up marketing at Toast. He's an SVP. He said the pandemic accelerated their plans to do this sort of world-class work, but it made their story ultimately a lot less Toast-centric because they had to be there for their restaurants, right? Not just for their clients or for their customers, but for the entire restaurant community. So in his mind, this was an opportunity for Toast to rise to the challenge. It really accelerated their plans to really act like a partner to their restaurants and not just market to them. All right, the second thing that I think your story needs in 2020 going into 2021 is a relatable narrator. Now, what do I mean by that? The New York Times in June of 2020 announced a big change to their morning email newsletter. Instead of just coming from the New York Times and representing all the editors and reporters there, it would come from one guy by the name of David Leonhardt. And every single morning, I get an email from David Leonhardt. Good morning, he says, and then he tells me what the day's news is. Now, I think this is so interesting and so significant because this is the New York Times that is known for not celebrating one person, one individual. They want to celebrate the New York Times. They want their customers, their readers, their subscribers to build a relationship with the Times, not with David. But yet the shift in this, I think, is key because the New York Times knows that we need more than that now. We need people. We need to look into the eyes and see the faces of people to build that relatable trust with our audience, right? With our own subscribers. Now, our friend Condescending Cat, like, he just won't quit, right? It's like, yeah, but that's the New York Times. They're a publisher. And trust is essentially, you could argue, what they do business in, right? But I think actually that there's a lot of ways that we as marketers can learn from what the New York Times is doing. Because David is not just a writer. He becomes a sort of anchor host for the New York Times morning newsletter. And I think your brand and my brand, we need an anchor host. We need somebody we can relate to, somebody we can build that relationship with, someone we can trust. Anand Sanwal is the CEO of CB Insights. They track data and technology. They're based in New York City, and every morning I get an email from Anand Sanwal, and he starts with a hi there, and it ends with an I love you. Anand Sanwal loves me. I love that. There's a lot of reasons why I love this email that I get every single day. And it's not just because of the I love you, but it's because that is an example of the sort of relatability of a B2B newsletter that talks about data and technology and startups, right? I think in part why this newsletter has grown so exponentially. And there's another reason why I really like this. It's because look at that email address. It comes from Anand.Sanwal. It doesn't come from newsletter at CB Insights, or it doesn't come from data at CB Insights. It comes from Anand Sanwal. Oh, it doesn't come from the one I really hate, which is do not reply at CB Insights. That guy gets way too much work in marketing. So we need to just get him out, right? Not okay. Now, I don't know if that's actually Anand's email address. I don't know if it's a proxy for his email. I'm guessing that it is. because he's the CEO of this massive company, right? But I think the signal there is so important, and the way that that is so relatable throughout. It starts even right at that moment when it lands in my inbox. I'm focusing on email right now because I want to just make this point to all of you here today. Email is so vastly undervalued by so many brands, and yet it's so critical, I think, in 2020 into 2021. And I believe that because email is really the only place where people like you and like me, and not algorithms, are in control. Now, there's a little bit of algorithm, of course, in deciding whether an email newsletter is actually going to land in an inbox. I'm not acknowledging that. But yet email is the point where, if someone signs up for it, they want to hear from you. So we need to value that a little bit differently. I could talk to you about email, by the way, for another hour, but we need to move on. My point to you today is take a look at your email newsletter. I think most of us are using it as a distribution strategy, and we're not using it we're not honoring it as that opportunity to connect more deeply with the people we serve. Cleveland Clinic publishes an email newsletter called Health Essentials. 3 times a week, it comes out. It covers health and wellness issues. It's morphed a little bit, of course, throughout this pandemic. And you can see here, one of their recent issues talks about overcoming mask anxiety, how for some people that feels really uncomfortable to have a mask on your face, right? But one of the things I really like about what the Cleveland Clinic has done is that they have realized, just like the New York Times, just like CB Insights, that during this pandemic, they need to go a little further. That the relationship can't just be with the Cleveland Clinic, this international healthcare organization. And so they launched a second newsletter from Tomislav, their CEO. It comes directly from Tomislav, although I have a nit to pick with that updates at. I feel like that could have been done so much better, but I love the newsletter. And here's why I love it, because it comes from him and it sounds like it's written by him. He also starts with hello there, talking to one person at one time. It's not subscribers or dear friends, it's friend, right? It's one person. Because when that lands into your inbox, you're talking to one person. You're not talking to a room full of people, right? It's one person. Tomislav uses lots of I's and lots of we and lots of yous. He's signaling we are there for you in these unprecedented times. I am there for you. I am struggling just like all of you are with some challenges of everyday life. But here's how we can help you, we being the Cleveland Clinic. And I think it makes a massive difference that this email comes in Tomislav's voice and it comes directly from him and it's signed by him. Anders Lagston, I think, is another great example of somebody who thinks about having a relatable narrator for his content. What you're looking at here is Anders Lagston's Instagram feed. He's the CEO of a company called Baking Steel. Baking Steel manufactures and sells flat steel plates that makes the best pizza outside of Naples, Italy, in your home oven. So this is Andres's Instagram. But look at Andres. Look at the Baking Steel's Instagram. It's Andres again. It's his face, but it's Baking Steel this time. And just look at the number of followers here on Andres. 1,480 followers. Right here, 90,000 followers. Right, big difference. And so, as the CEO of Baking Steel, Andres is front and center. He's the guy out there who is producing Instagram lives when things shut down and he wasn't able to invite his community into his home kitchen. He used to have cooking classes in his home kitchen south of Boston, Massachusetts, every single Thursday night. He thought to himself, we need to take this virtual, right? So he started having Zoom classes. He started doing it on Instagram Live as well. He produced a virtual series for YouTube as well. His face is front and center for Baking Steel. It's not just Andres, of course, but his relatable personality as a narrator for his brand, I think, makes a big difference. I think that if your brand is going to thrive in 2020, you've got to turn that camera around. You've got to show your face. And you don't have to be perfect. Like, did you see Andres? He's a little crazy pizza guy, right? He's kind of like, wow. It's okay. It's fine. No one cares. It's more important to be relatable than it is to be perfect because, friends, perfection's a fairy tale. We all know that. as related to that, I think having a non-neutral voice in everything you do, in all of your writing and the way that you communicate with your clients and prospects is so key. And what do I mean by that? I think we all have this kind of marketing voice in ourselves. At Marketing Profs, at my company, when the marketing team sits down to write an email, I can see it in their first drafts. You know, they're perfectly normal people, but when they sit down to write, they turn into like robots, you know, and they're like, dear valued consumers, hi, you know, they get so awkward. So I think losing the marketing voice is so key to success in 2020. This guy, chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, I just had a moment where I totally forgot his name. I was like, who is this again? Warren. It's Warren Buffett. Sweet Lord. Warren Buffett, chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, pens a letter to shareholders every single year. It's published in February. It is fantastic reading. I love his letter to shareholders. It goes out to tens of thousands of Berkshire Hathaway shareholders. It goes out to the press. People want to know, what does Warren Buffett have to say about business in the given year? When Warren writes this, I love the way he approaches it, right? Now, he's the CEO of this, or the chairman of this, you know, massive, massive entity. But the way that he writes is so simple. He breaks things down into very simple terms. And as a result, he makes the business world and everything about it feel so much more accessible. It's also a little playful, though. He has some fun metaphors in there. He makes some fun sort of distinctions, and it's just written in very playful language. Now, when Warren sits down to write this letter, he doesn't think about the tens of thousands of people who will read it. He doesn't think about the fact that it'll be written up in USA Today and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal and every other publication out there. He doesn't think about that. Instead, he thinks about this gal. This is Warren's sister. Her name is Doris. And he writes to Doris, he said, because she's smart, she reads a lot, she doesn't know all the financial jargon, but she doesn't want to be treated like a child. He says, I try to say on paper what I would tell her about the business if we sat down for an afternoon. If I were to do that, to write just to Doris, right? I think that writing to Doris is a marketing superpower. Think about that one person that you are communicating with. And I'm not talking about writing an email or writing at all. I'm talking about in terms of your communications. Are you actually communicating with only a Doris, at one person at one time? I think it changes the way you communicate. And you can see it. Look at the copy on your website. Look at your social channels. Are you talking, count the number of views, okay? It shouldn't be dear valued customers. How many views do you have? Count them on your fingers. If you run out of fingers, you're doing great, okay? So use you as much as possible. I also think that it gives you an opportunity to provide context. So if you are sharing something on social, or if you are sharing something on your blog, or if you are sharing something in an email, it's not, this is the thing we're blasting this segment about in an email context, right? Instead, it's a useful thing that I want to tell you about that could only come from me, not us, but from me, right? So it changes the way you communicate when you think about writing to Doris. I think it also makes your writing more specific because you're thinking about one person who you want to delight a little bit, right? So I think more specific writing will make a more relatable marketer, a more relatable marketing program. My friend Doug Kessler runs an agency in the UK called Velocity. And this is from some recent copy that arrived in my own inbox. It's about metrics in marketing. And look at the writing of this. You probably picture Velocity as at the creative snowflake end of the marketing spectrum. But behind the interpreted dance and the panpipe jingles, don't ask, got rejected, we lean into analytics dashboards like tweens lean into TikTok. Now, they could have just said, Velocity could have just said, you know, we love metrics here at Velocity, but they didn't. They sort of painted a picture. Doesn't it feel different? I also love this, by the way, later on in that same piece. this guy named Duarte who works at Velocity. Our Uber geek Duarte makes Nate Silver look like a finger in the air hunch monkey. I love that. Finger in the air hunch monkey. I get to see the monkey. So good. I think I would challenge all of us here. If the from line falls off your email, if it falls off, you've covered up the logo on your website, would you know it's yours, right? Do you sound different if you were to cover up any discerning or any identifiable characteristics of anything that you're producing or publishing, right? Anything on your social channels, look at your website, look at your email, look at all of that. If the from line falls off, if the logo falls off, would you know it's yours? Or does it sound like it could come from maybe anybody else in your industry? All right, my fourth point here today is don't let your business sport a Zoom mullet. We all know what a Zoom mullet is, right? Because we're in the midst of a pandemic and we're all working from home. That's why we're not together in person. Instead, we're just all here. A Zoom mullet is when you sort of look pretty okay from here up, right? And it's kind of a hot mess down there, right? Who knows? Who knows what's going on down there, right? It's called a Zoom mullet because as we are all working from home and we're all Zooming from home, Walmart tells the truth, increased sales for tops, but not pants. Now, why is that? Because you got to look good, but you also got to be comfortable, right? Including like Rob, right? Rob Hunt posted on Instagram. He did a big sales call. He looks amazing, doesn't he? But down there, total Zoom mullet. Yeah, that's okay. A Zoom mullet is a sort of work from home reality in 2020 and heading into 2021. But don't let your business have a Zoom mullet. Make sure that you look the same from all angles. So don't give your business a Zoom mullet at all. When you get to the homepage of Currituck County Economic Development Agency, you are greeted with this image, and there are two calls to action right there. One is find property. If you want to do business in Currituck County, you can hit that. The other one says, call Larry. I saw that and I hit it and I called Larry. It turns out Larry is the executive director of the Currituck County Economic Development Agency. Now, why does he do this? Because he's doing all the things that I'm talking about here today. He's giving us a relatable presence. It's also a non-neutral voice, right? You might not like my newsletter directly from Larry, and that's okay. It's a little weird. It's a little different. It's very quirky, just like doing business in Currituck County itself. It's kind of folksy, right? Kind of accessible. That's what they're projecting. All throughout the Currituck County website, even just like a basic form. There's Larry Lombardi, Economic Development Director, right on there. Everything they do features Larry in some way. Larry just started a brand new YouTube channel. He's answering questions from businesses or from prospects who want to do business in Currituck County here in the US. So I love this so much because it's a great example of making sure that everything is aligned. Now, I'm not saying you've got to have a Larry front and center, but I'm saying think through every part of your marketing. Is it a Zoom mullet? Because the thing is, my friend, like no marketing thrives in solitary confinement. If what your customer experiences over here doesn't match what's over there, it's going to be a bit of a disconnect, right? We've all had this experience as consumers. And so don't let that happen to you. Make sure that the experience that you're delivering overall matches up, that it all sort of flows and it all works. Because remember, you want your business to look the same from all angles, not just the one that you spend the most time on. All right, my fifth and final point here today, before we can get to some questions, I hope, is an element of the unexpected. At the very start of this pandemic, I love what the Getty Museum did. The Getty Museum, when their museum was shut down, they wanted to still be able to highlight their works of art in the Getty collection. And so what they did is they challenged people on social media to recreate a work of art with objects and people just around their house. And people responded. It's just a fun brain break during the beginning of the pandemic. This is my absolute favorite from the French artist Chardin. Still life with fish, vegetables, gougere, pot, and crête on a table. And this is how this guy on Twitter recreated it. Still life with canned tuna and Trader Joe's. Some guy on Twitter. It's like it's a spitting image, isn't it? I mean, that just speaks French painter, you know, I think. Okay. You guys are like, we can't, what? Like, what is going on here? Condescending Cat is here to answer your questions. We're not sure what's unexpected about my service or tech, etc. business. I think the thing you can do here is so important is just to make the customer the hero of your story. Highlight your customers, highlight your prospects, bring them into it so that you are truly just telling their stories, highlighting the people who are in your community. So important. As much as I think it's important for a brand to turn the camera around and have a human face, I also think it's important for your customers to be part of that story. Because remember, we started out this conversation today talking about the importance of turning things around and making the customer the hero of your story. I love what Shopify does here. They will frequently do this. They'll offer opportunities for their for people who have shops on the Shopify platform. Here you're saying to do a takeover of their Instagram account for a day. So what you're looking at here is the person who runs Canada Pooch taking over Shopify's Instagram for the day, and she's saying, ask me anything. She's here to answer any questions. It's very interactive, and I love that so much. So somebody asked, what was the first position that you hired for? She said, a jack of all trades. Really great resource for small businesses or for any business, but I also really like the way that Shopify just said, here, you take over. It's just giving doing an Instagram takeover is a good way, I think, to sort of offer that element of the unexpected. Momentum is always greater than moments. It shouldn't just be that you do that once, but build that momentum to build that camaraderie and trust. Because when you tell the truth and you tell it over time, when you show who you are, when you show who your customers are, that's what's going to build that trust and affinity. So I want to thank you so much for having me. If you liked what I had to say today, I do have a newsletter that I publish every other Sunday. I would love just for you to be on that list, and it's only every fortnight, so not very frequent at all. Now, wait a second, you're saying, what happened? What happened with Bun? All right, so real quick, let's just go through this. I had to think about trust and affinity. Am I building trust and affinity with Bun? Am I showing him that I understand him best? And does Bun like me? Is he hearing the barking dog in the house who's barking at Bun and thinking, this feels a little weird. This feels like a Zoom mullet situation. So am I building these two things? It turns out that I didn't know anything about rabbits. I thought, oh, I know animals and I sort of know rabbits. So I think I got this. It turns out that Bun doesn't even like carrots very much. I had to do a ton of research trying to understand the mindset of Bun, trying to get inside his fur a little bit, figuring out what would motivate him and looking at his behavior and how he would act. I did so much research that you might say I went down no, I'm not going to go there. You know, you filled that in. So here's what I found out. I found out that actually Bun likes greens more than anything else. Here you see him munching on some tall grass that I picked around the neighborhood for him. It's beside a pile of arugula that I got from Whole Foods. It's organic because only the best for my boy, right? So Bun and I worked on this. There we go. Bun and I worked on this over July and August. Eventually, I get to the point where Bun is like definitely in the consideration phase. I felt confident enough at that point to move him from MQL to SQL. He's now a sales qualified lead. He is very much in the consideration phase because he's looking at me and he's thinking, I think this could happen. I think this could happen. Now, you're not going to be able to hear this, so you're going to have to imagine that you're about to hear this like crescendo of music at a very key moment, okay? Are we ready? Because this, my friends, is what happened. Think of a swell of music coming up, and here he goes, and yes, that is a conversion, right? That's a conversion right there. So excited. All right, real quick, camaraderie at scale. Make sure your brand has a relatable narrator. Make sure your story has a relatable narrator. Don't tell it in a neutral voice. Make sure it's a non-neutral voice. Don't let your business have a Zoom mullet, and always include some element of the unexpected. Highlight your customers. Give a different face every chance you get. Thank you so much, and I hope that you are staying safe and you are staying sane throughout these sort of challenging times we find ourselves doing business in. I really appreciate you all being here today, and if I can help you at all, please reach out to me. You can reach me at ann@annhanley.com is my direct email. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend. Are you here?
Yes, Donna is up. I'm here too, just for a second. I posted in the chat, but I wanted everyone to know with Ann's amazing presentation and now with Donna's session, we really don't want to miss any of that. I ran a little long in the beginning, so we are a bit behind, and hopefully we can tack that on to the end. Let us know in the chat what you think of that. But this is definitely something we don't want to miss. Donna, you've got questions prepared. There's excellent questions in the questions tab, and you folks should take it away. I don't want to take up any more time.
Thank you.
I know, and I was going to say that even, I know we did run a little bit long, but if you want to do like a follow-up something, we can talk about doing that too. So
great. So are you saying we can like maybe post some questions to you later and you'll?
Yeah, so I was thinking we could, or you and I can do like a quick interview or something like that. Okay,
sure.
I need water after
I'm
that.
happy.
That was a long time.
That was fantastic, Ann. I loved the presentation. I loved how succinct you were. I loved the fact that you talked about trust and building that and building a relationship. And that's perfect. And we have a lot of startups with us today. And I know you've been very successful in marketing process as well. So if you were to go back day one, starting over and you had limited resources, what would you be doing first? What would you focus on?
In terms of marketing, you mean?
Yes. Well, content and marketing.
Yeah. So more broadly, I would focus on building an audience, essentially building community. So, which is essentially what we did at Marketing Profs, but we did it because when we started Marketing Profs, we started as a publisher. So of course we were building community, we were building an audience there. But I think, now we've entered the era of content marketing where every brand is a publisher. Every brand needs to be thinking about how do we actually build community and how do we build a database.
Exactly.
So I think the most important thing is to make sure that anything you're doing is connected to a way that you are able to build your database, build a community around you. I just think that is the thing that is so important.
Okay. And if you could tell us, like, if your company is growing, who's going to be your first hire? You're not just yourself anymore.
My first hire is always based on two things. First is attitude. I always like hire for attitude first, and secondly for skills. But that said, I think if you were say to me like, well, what skills do you look for? I look for strong writers, and I don't look for strong writers because I believe that we all should write, although I do believe that, but that's not the only reason. I also think that's because when you are a writer, and when you're a strong writer, and you can communicate in that way, what that does is it allows you to think about your audience and your delivery and the way you communicate. And I just think that is a skill that is so critical in not just only in marketing, but in business and in life. So, are you able to rally people around your ideas, for example? And maybe you aren't writing those ideas down, but the way that you convey them with that sort of mindset of why is this going to matter to my audience, that's essentially what good writing does, right? It's not about grammar, and it's not about, being able to put a sentence together in a beautiful Hemingway-esque kind of way. Instead, it's about, am I communicating clearly and succinctly and with empathy and respect for the audience? And so that's why I look for writers, because I want people on my staff to have that quality, that they're thinking about the people that we serve, both internally and externally.
Based on that, if you were to make that hire, I'm throwing this question in ad hoc, but is there a test or something that you would be giving them before you brought them on board? Do you give them a writing test?
Yeah, we do. We do that. Yeah, we do. And if you're gonna, I'd have to send it to you. I don't know offhand what it is, but we do that. Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you. But more than that, like I just look for small things, like how is somebody communicating with me in email prior to, or if you ask them a question, like even if they fumble around a little bit, like are they ultimately getting to the core of an idea pretty quickly? So, you know, I don't think when I say hiring a writer that that you're listening for just writing skills, or that you're watching just writing skills. You're also listening for how they communicate. Is it, you know, again, are they thinking about with brevity and clarity, and are they thinking about things from the listener's mindset?
From the hero's mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move ahead a little bit. Let's say marketing process now, you know, you have product market fit, and all I want to do is grow. I've got a good writer on board. What are you going to focus on, Anne? What should our audience do?
In terms of tactics, you mean?
Well, tactics, but I think there's some strategy behind that too.
Yeah, for sure. I would focus on story. I spent a lot of time today talking about the importance of story to your marketing strategy. So I would focus on that first, and at least getting the fundamentals down. Like a story will evolve over time. Like you don't create your story and then go, okay, done. That was fun. Now what? Right? Instead, like you sort of start to think about, here's our story that we're telling to a community, to a market, to engage them emotionally. But that story is going to evolve over time as your business evolves, as your audience evolves. And so I would think about the story as a foundation of the strategy, and then build out your strategy from there. So think of your story, and then think about how are we going to tell that story, essentially, in a way that connects emotionally. So yeah, that's where I would start. In terms of you know, how would I get the word out? How would I connect with people emotionally? I mean, that's going to vary depending on your own inclination as a business owner or as a marketer. You know, what do you love to do? Are you a person who loves video, like my friend Andres Logskin at Baking Steel? He's a very video first kind of guy, because you can sort of see he communicates best that way. And so, you know, I think it just is going to depend on who you are, you know, as opposed to like CB Insights. Their one thing is their newsletter, you know, and that's what they focus on, which isn't to say that they don't do anything else, but everything drives toward that newsletter. So think about that path to conversion. So that's that story you're telling, the strategy around it, and making sure that there is a path that ultimately will create an ecosystem that'll help you grow your company.
I'm just going to grab a question from the audience regarding that story, and we're trying to scale. Do we focus that story on us, or do we focus it on the hero? Or do we follow that formula that you were talking about? Here's the hero, here's the major problem. And so just maybe
talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, always focus on the challenge that I see a lot of, or the mistake I see a lot of brands making all the time is, you know, it's again, that we have pizza mindset, right? We talk about ourselves way too much. And so as much as you want to think about your worldview, your why, you more importantly want to think about how do you tell that why to people who matter most to your business. So that's what it really means to make the customer the hero, is to just think about framing everything you do, your story, in the context of why someone should care. Why should your customer care? And so so I think the framework for that is tell customer stories, you know, try to focus on them as much as you can. Show how your solution or your product lives in the world, right? Not how you are, but how you help others. I think if you can start there, and if you can grow your marketing from there, you'll be in such a stronger position long term.
Okay. The other one of the other questions that's getting quite high ranking is, how do you, if you don't have a Larry, or you don't have a persona, a person, do you create one? Like, what do you do?
So I'm a big fan of using internal influencers as opposed to going externally and finding somebody who can represent your brand. I think that your employees, even if it's your founder, or, you know, even if you are an employee of one, in other words, if you only have one person to work with, but I'm a big fan of, if you don't have a Larry, like nurture a Larry, like find somebody internally who can really be that relatable narrator for your story. And so I think that that's the most important thing, is to look internally, find the people who are sort of natural content creators, When you asked me just a second ago, I'm going to go back to a question you asked about who would I hire. I mean, another way to look at to answer that question is like not just to think about a writing test, but look at their own. What do they do online? Like, are they creating content for fun? Look at their Instagram. Look at the way that they're written on their Instagram, for example. So just another sort of way to think about a new hire is to, just to do some social prospecting in that way. Anyway, sorry, I just got distracted because I was thinking about that when I should have said that earlier.
Okay.
Oh, so if you don't have a Larry, yeah, find your Larry. Find somebody internally who can.
And I'm just going to add to that. I've had people want to use like robots or animated people. Is that?
I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I like a real person. I'm not a fan of these sort of, like a Geico lizard or something like that, right? Or I guess he's not a lizard. Is he a lizard? What is he? Anyway, I guess he's a lizard. Anyway, a gecko. Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm a fan of actually using a person, but which isn't to say that it can never work. I mean, the exception proves the rule. But I'm a big fan of presenting your actual human face to your actual audience. So yeah, that's always my bias.
And I'm just gonna, maybe one or two, but one of them is content obviously is important. And, how do we make that buyer journey part of, make that consistency? So you talked about the mullet, but
the Zoom mullet, yeah.
The Zoom mullet, but how does content play a role? Like, I know getting to the cross, getting them there, getting the interest and getting that rabbit to eat that lettuce. But now the rabbits eat the lettuce and, we want them to be a repeat eater or we want them to buy some carrots or if you can get them onto it. So how do we involve content post sales?
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do in that situation is to empower your existing customers through referrals, for example. We're running out of time here, but there is another slide that I have as part of that rabbit story, which is just a couple weeks ago, I had a bun out there with another little rabbit. And I was like, there we go. That's a referral strategy working right there. He's like, you got to come over here. She's got greens and she buys organic. So, but no, I think empowering your existing customers to invite others to be part of your community is the most important thing. And I do that even just like even through my own newsletter, for example. So as I said, I have a newsletter I publish every other Sunday. My biggest growth comes from, I don't do any Facebook advertising around that, or I don't do any outreach. Otherwise, I don't even put it on LinkedIn, like nothing. It's like I'm a terrible marketer in terms of that. But the thing I do is I empower my subscribers to please share it with anyone they think who will be interested. And that to me has been the best strategy ever. And so because I have that trust and that relationship that I've built with this core of subscribers, which is now over 40,000 people, they and if I ask them, like, will you please share it so that we can continue to grow together? Like, they will, because they want to see you succeed. They're invested in me. They're invested in the story. And so I only tell you that story because I think it's the very same thing that we can do with our brands and with who we are, right? Are you empowering your existing subscribers, and are you empowering your existing clients? And also just to think, empowering your existing, your internal influencers as well.
Thanks. The last question I have for you, Anne, is really around, I get a lot of people, trying, especially startup companies and scale-ups, and we know content's important, but they're always suffering around sometimes, how do I justify this? Is there a KPI, or is there something that helps link the, success of a content program? And what should I be tracking, and how do I prove I'm good?
Yeah, how do I prove this is actually working?
Yes,
I think that's why, at the very beginning of our Q&A here together, Donna, when you asked about, like, what do you focus on? I'm focusing on subscribers. You need to show something that has real business value, right? And so you can't just show, like, growth of social channels, and like that's amazing, awesome. But and I don't mean to say that isn't important. Like I do look at that, but to me it's much more anecdotal. But I want to look at is, are people trusting me? Are they investing in learning more about me? Are they investing in that relationship? So that's why I believe in looking at subscriber numbers, the growth in subscriber numbers. Because one of the things that we found at Marketing Profs is because when we can get people to subscribe for free to our products and our services, they are far more likely to purchase our masterclasses, to purchase a ticket to the B2B forum, our annual marketing event. But they're not going to, like, there's very few people that come in blind and just buy from us, right? And so it's how do you actually start to connect, sorry, I just got distracted by chat. How do you actually connect, your activities? I think that's why I think subscribers is a good one to focus on. And honestly, it's like, I think in marketing, we tend to overcomplicate. Like, just find something that you can grow, something like a subscriber, and then think about that lifetime value based on that person, right? And so that's the math that we've done at Marketing Profs, which is why we focus on building that free subscriber and nurturing that relationship with a free subscriber, because we know it'll pay off, because we know X number of those people will convert long term.
So understanding the ratios and conversion,
yes,
from your one to the other. But what I think I heard overarching is, no matter what you're sending out, please do it. Please provide good value.
Yeah.
And don't, right? Like,
yeah.
At all times, your content should offer good value.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and don't abandon something that's working. The other thing that I think that we tend to do as brands is that, the quarter changes or the year changes and we move on, right? So if it's working, figure out ways to lean into that and leverage it even more. I think that we tend to abandon things before they've really played out. Could we do more with it? And I think like that toast example is a great example of that, where yes, that was a response to the pandemic. In that 72-hour sprint that I described, they put up this rally for restaurant site, but now they are taking it, here we are, 7, 8, 9 months into the pandemic, and they're taking it and creating more and more value, using that site with their audience, with the people they serve, which are, restaurants.
Right.
So I think don't just move on because, all right, well, pandemic, people don't need access to COVID-19 funding anymore, so let's just move on. But instead, what they're doing is thinking like just really from the mindset of their audience, like what do they really need from us right now, and how can we evolve our message? So not abandon it, but how can we evolve it?
Great. And this has been amazing, and I don't want to take any more of your time. I think I've already kind of overstepped my balance.
No, not at all. This was great. I'm sorry, I probably went too long too. So
no, it's good. I think my audiences would appreciate that. So if you could, I know that you have some good reading for people. I know you have a couple of best-selling books that people can look into. But can you impart one last bit of wisdom before you leave today? Before you leave, I really do want to thank you. I think this has been an awesome. I went back to school today too, so thank you so much.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, I mean, my gosh, I hope we can be in person at some point, maybe next year.
Yeah, that would be great.
2021 or something like that. Yeah. Final words of wisdom. I mean, I don't know. I hope. I guess all I can say is I hope that BUN stuck with you, because when I think about that story, it's like, yeah, it's a fun story and it's kind of silly and it's kind of cute, but I think about BUN every single day when I'm interacting with my own audience, because every interaction matters. And so that was my massive takeaway from BUN through that ridiculous exercise that I went through last summer. But every single interaction matters. And, there were a few times where things went a little weird. I made a sudden move and BUN skedaddled, but ultimately, my heart was in the right place. And I think if we approach our own audiences with that same way, like, yes, you will make mistakes, but are you thinking about things from their point of view? Are you doing your best to deliver value? And don't overthink it. I think in content, we tend to overthink so much, but just, start somewhere and iterate your message as you go.
And thank you so much. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. And again, everybody here, if I can help. And Liam's back. So looking fabulous.
I'm back. I've got to push us forward. I'm so sad to do it, Anne.
Yes.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It was amazing.
All right.
Amazing,
thanks so much.
Amazing keynote, amazing Q&A. I was so happy we got some audience questions too. That was perfect.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thanks,
all right,
Anne.
talk soon. Bye.
Bye. All right. So now, Donna, we're ready to get into the panel with our amazing founders, and they're going to jump up on stage now. And I'm going to do as Bun does and skedaddle. And Donna, you can...
Hello, can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Yes, excellent. All right, yes, we have another great session coming up. I hope people can stand up and exercise and just get shake off any, oh, you're gonna join in, Jeff? No? We have three great organizations that have recently gone from what we call a startup to a scale up. And I have our founders with us. I'm going to get Mr. Bennett to introduce his company first, but before that, I want to tell you a little bit about Jeff. He's the Chief Operating Officer for Relogix. He's an accomplished executive leader with 20-year track record for delivering exceptional results through repeatable and scalable methodologies. COO of Relogix, Jeff is accountable for ensuring that all aspects of the business are aligned, structured to achieve market success by ensuring that customer is the center of everything they do. Jeff is also an executive mentor at Invest Ottawa and coaches and leads many startup technology companies. Our next, welcome Jeff, Mr. McNaught. He is the co-founder and president of RV Easy, and this is Canada's first peer-to-peer RV rental marketplace. Michael pioneered this rental space by mobilizing the 2.1 million RV owners, and he's getting them to offer their goods to people all around the world, right? They can rent your RVs. Prior to RV Easy, Mike spent 12 years as a police officer investigating the online exploitation of children. And following a tragic injury on the job, Michael co-founded RV Easy. So welcome, Michael. We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
And very noble as well. And finally, our last speaker is Pierce Eugene Walla. He's the co-founder and CEO of NAC. Pierce is an entrepreneur, career marketer, and co-founder of NAC. As I said, he has extensive experience in the marketing trenches as enterprise organizations, both at the both the client and consulting side. Pierce has successfully bootstrapped 2 organizations with customer-first approach and is trusted by customers like Google, Citrix, and Verizon. Welcome to you as well, Pierce.
Thanks, Donna.
So before, congratulations, by the way, to all of you from your recent success. That's pretty impressive. I'm going to start our session by giving you an opportunity to give the audience a little bit of background about each of your organizations so that we can just introduce them to us so that give some context for some of the questions I'm going to be asking you. So we can start with Jeff.
Sure. Okay, so Relogix is, we are a 10-year-old company, but really 5 when you put us in the context of technology. We're about 25 people today. Our space is pretty unique and pretty niche, but we offer or we provide workspace analytics for corporate real estate organizations or corporate real estate tenants, I should say. So our clients are people like Starbucks, Aon, Accenture, and our technology helps people understand how space is used, understands workplace experience, and provides think of it like we're like the cerebral cortex of corporate real estate strategy. And our clients rely on us to help them figure out their design strategy, their real estate strategy. Now with COVID, safely return to work, and so we have both hardware and software in our tech stack.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And Michael, would you like to introduce RV Easy for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So RVZ is a peer-to-peer RV rental marketplace. We started 4 years ago, and what we do is provide RV owners with the opportunity to rent out their personal motorhome or travel trailer to aspiring vacationers from around the world. So in the last 4 years, we've now grown all across Canada, provided a premier insurance product to all of our owners. And we've grown to a team of over 50 staff and just recently launched into the American market.
Cool. All right. Last up, Pierce.
Yeah. So NAC is 5 years old. We're 30 employees now. We're fully bootstrapped, and about 90% of our business comes from the US. And what the problem that we solve is to help global organizations like Google, who have hundreds of marketers around the world, be able to collaborate and build better emails, no matter where those stakeholders are in the world. And we work, our customers all have like a marketing automation platform like Marketo or Eloqua or Marketing Flood.
That's awesome. Pierce, you must have liked the talk that was preceded us then. I don't know if you...
Yes, there was a lot of talk about email, which was great.
That's good. So you guys have helped your organization go like literally from inception to scale now. You're starting to scale your organizations up. And I'd like you to share with the audience, you know, what has been your biggest challenge morphing from a startup to a scale up? How do you make that jump? What give us a little bit. I'm going to start with you, Mike.
Yeah, so, you know, it's a really great question and a lot of thought behind that. You know, when going from the startup phase where essentially it's founder led, you know, we're making all the decisions, we're making all the processes, and it works really well as an MVP, proving your business model, making sure all those processes are refined. The biggest challenge for sure is that now how do you take those processes and implement them at scale while maintaining the quality of your product, maintaining conversions, and being able to grow and maintain that sustainable business model at scale with delegating some of those responsibilities and processes. By far, I found that the most challenging and continues to be challenging as we continue to scale. You know, a lot of businesses, established businesses, if they achieve a 2% growth rate, they're very happy. Well, when you're doing 400% or 500% growth every year, it's a new business every 6 months. So by far, the biggest challenge and ongoing challenge is being able to grow and have the same processes that worked in the early days continue at scale.
Okay, and are there any tips you could offer about some of getting those processes to work at scale? Is it?
I'd say do it early on, and you know, understand it's not going to be perfect the first time around, and continue to iterate. And you're going to continue to learn and surround yourself by people that have been successful in the past, have mentors, have people that can kind of help guide you through those experiences.
Hey, Donna, just to add real quick to that, what Relogix did early on, just to jump on Michael's point, was we created what's called the Relogix Way. And we started that about almost 2 years ago now, about a year and a half ago, where every single process in the company, from finance to marketing to sales playbooks, customer success playbooks, and because we have a hardware component, there's inventory, operations, and we've mapped out every single process. And we go back and we kind of refine them every quarter to every 2 quarters, depending on which process. And that helps us so that as we hire people, they can just kind of jump into the slipstream, right? It's easier for onboarding, it's easier for scaling. And so it's a tough hill to climb when you first start to do it, but once you've done it, you're so happy that you did.
Okay, so you're saying like put some frameworks in place in each area of your organization, every process.
Yep. We're literally finance to customer success, like everything.
So that's good. It gives us an idea of what you went through. But so what was your biggest challenge, Jeff?
Our biggest challenge, we have hardware and software. So we have sensors, plus we're really a data company, but the sensors provide the data. I would say it's kind of all grouped in one category, which is that we've had to punch well above our weight class, right? So at first, the companies that had the biggest pain, again, pre-COVID, were those with large real estate portfolios, right? So every customer we sold to, call it Starbucks offices, it could be Accenture, et cetera. By definition, they are global companies. And so So just getting through the procurement of being a 25-person company into these large organizations, that's one. But then we have to physically figure out how to install sensors physically around the globe, and not to mention the certification that's required to get IoT anywhere. You got to get your hardware certified in different countries. And so I would say, and then overlay that with the constant requirement to update and improve what you're doing at global scale, across countries, that involves physical installation. Very tough.
That sounds very tough. Huge challenge. So can you give anybody insights on how you wrestled that with that one? How did you become this global organization?
Yeah, we've established really strong channel partnerships with global players, such as early on with JLL, which is a big real estate facilities provider for global corporations. So they started doing our installations, for example. Mm-hmm. And so we had to find either regional or global partners that can help us to be the hands and feet at different locations. Early on, we just flew our employees everywhere, but that wasn't very scalable. So.
Okay, so you helped and leveraged the partnerships that could actually teach you a little bit more about how to harden some of your processes and actually be the channels for you.
Correct.
Great. Pierce, we'd like to hear from you. How are your challenges growing your organization from startup?
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar to Michael on the process side, but ours, I think it's like combining the processes and people. So how can we, find really great people and then onboard them and get them equipped to work within our company as everything is also changing. Because we're bootstrapped too, we need to use our resources very efficiently. So it's also like the order of the hires matters a lot, and what's the right order at the right time.
So talent was really important to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it almost sounds like that was was finding the right talent a hard thing to do? Because I get that a lot. People looking for the right person. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've dealt with that?
Yeah, I think one of the best things for us is, really good people know other really good people. And so we've always encouraged our employees to help us find and fill positions that are open. And so a big percentage of our employee base is actually referrals of people that they worked with in the past. Another thing that's really been helping us lately as well is that, people who work here are leaving great Glassdoor reviews, and that's also helping. But overall, it's like having a good culture and making it a great place to work and giving employees, things to work on that they're passionate about and that they enjoy doing.
It's easy to do that when you're small, but it's harder to make that work when you're scaling. So were there any things that, that you, I guess, did to make sure that that culture and that nice company to work for remained and didn't get eroded?
Yeah. So, we defined our core values, and we actually have an award every week that we give out to someone on the team who has best kind of embodied those core values. So that's something that we do to kind of make sure that those things live on. Just on the HR side, I think we implemented Bamboo HR and made it so that we're able to scale with more people as well.
Well, thanks, Pierce. If anybody else wants to add, how do you keep your culture going? That would be, is there anything you do that's unique, Jeff?
Yeah, with COVID, obviously it's harder because the water cooler conversations aren't as frequent, et cetera. But we've done a few things, I think. One is we communicate early and often, I guess. We did that even pre-COVID. So lots of, unbelievably transparent about what's going on. Transparent about everything from cash flow, transparent to what's going on with their business, transparent with the challenges that we're facing. That's one. Two is we do certainly recognize employees, but we recognize not only the kind of the individual contributor, but we also recognize where, with rewards and the like and recognition, where teamwork has really turned a challenge into something very successful. And so we've kind of created this environment where you're trying to solve problems as a team, right? And I would say, lastly, what we started to do, again, mostly pre-COVID, is that we were creating windows for the market at large into what it's like to work for our company. So we've created a few videos about what it's like to work in our company that interviewed some of our employees. So hopefully it will attract people to us, which is really important as far as trying to find the right people to scale.
Thanks. Anybody, Mike, do you want to talk about how your people at all and what you do for keeping that RVZ culture going?
Yeah, you know what we like to do is we really like to empower a lot of the employees. Just similar to what Jeff said, we're a very open book within the company, and I think it's really important to kind of get the buy-in from everyone. We've had some, our employee retention is incredible. We get some amazing employees that stick around, and by empowering them and putting them in decision-making roles, it's been incredibly empowering to the rest of the team. And at the end of the day, the iterations on the product that come from a collective group of people that are all moving in the same direction has just sped up the scaling that we're able to do.
That's interesting. So my next question is actually one of the audience also feels the same. They'd like to learn a little bit more. If you could have a do-over, I mean, we know, there's a lot of things when you're starting up that you try and don't work out, but if you could have a do-over, what would it be? I'm going to start with you, Jeff. What would it be for you?
A do-over for us, we probably have a few do-overs, but one is that we've waited way too long to bring on product management. So someone whose sole responsibility is the product, and someone whose sole responsibility is to track the market, get the features laid out, have the prioritization. And because right now our product management is done primarily through committee, right? There's 3 or 4 of us that all have an opinion, and then we try and organize it, and it probably drives our development team a little bit crazy. And if I was to do a do-over, I would have a product manager brought on board far earlier than we have, and because it just makes for kind of inconsistency around prioritizations and the like.
That's interesting. I also subscribe to that, Jeff. I find organizations wait far too long to bring product management into the fold, and they're such an essential part of your revenue engine. So thank you for that. Mike?
Yeah. It's there's so many ups and downs on this roller coaster ride we're all on. But I one that kind of sticks out for me is just really on the business model itself. Being new to the startup scene and getting into it, you see a lot of the Silicon Valley mentality where it's growth at all cost. We proved our business model very early. Our MVP was out there. We knew people wanted our product. I think looking back, I think it would have been beneficial to maybe spend a little more time on, our pricing structure, or how do we make revenue? Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to build sustainable, long-term, profitable companies. And especially in the early days when you're pitching investors and talking to VCs, that's what they want to see. Gone are the days of spending millions of dollars and not really, acquiring customers, but you're not really showing any revenue generation or a path to profitability. So I think a do-over would be taking a little more time on that end so that you can see the long-term sustainability of the company. We made adjustments to our business model and pricing model in the last 12 months, and there was no change on our user base, no change in our conversions. And I think that could have been done a little bit earlier, which would have made maybe the VC circuit a little bit smoother.
So you're saying you would have started asking a bit more and generating a bit more revenue, and revenue is king?
Just understanding what the business model is and what is that path to profitability, and with the fee structure, how we made our money early on, if you were to continue that, how would that lead into a profitable company? Is this something that is sustainable given the size of the market that you're in and given the growth that you're experiencing? Because it may be a fantastic idea and great adoption, but it may not be long-term sustainable.
So you're saying not all revenue is good revenue?
Yeah, I think I'd agree to that.
Okay. Pierce, you could have a do-over. What would you do?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely lots of them. I actually, this is my second company, so I am living a do-over in a way in my first company.
That's good.
My first company, we really hired people based on skill set and not necessarily on culture fit. We had never identified our core values, and I think that really, it took a while, but it eventually bit us. And we just didn't have kind of that, our core values identified. And so there was a few different directions that the company was going in. Whereas with NAC from day one, and I know this is hard for all the founders out there because core values is like the last thing on your list. It in and of itself makes you no money, but it is so valuable to have. And I mean, we're seeing that now at NAC, how it pays dividends. So sometimes there's things you have to do at the beginning that don't seem like priorities, but are really foundational and important to do.
Interesting. I'm hearing a lot of consistency around the fact that you have to really look at your processes, your people, and put some structure around there if you're going to scale successfully. Now.
Yeah. Structure when you're small seems like a bad word, right?
Yes.
You're like, don't confuse structure with bureaucracy, right? You don't want bureaucracy, but you do want structure.
And I'm also hearing from Mike especially is that you need to understand that your business eventually has to show a profit or you're going to, right? So start planning for that ahead. Like start thinking about how you're going to get there earlier, right? Not just go out there and do a willy-nilly. Be a little bit more thoughtful on what you're trying to achieve there. Is that true, Michael?
Yeah, I think I'd agree, and especially given a bit of the climate over the last couple of years, and from the experience pitching investors and talking to hundreds of VCs, you need to be able to demonstrate that. Like it's a really important aspect. I think that the heyday of these crazy valuations going out and money being spent just to grow, I don't think that's quite where the VCs are at. They want to see that this company can be profitable, can sustain itself, and is going to be a good investment at the end of the day.
I know that when we were growing our organization, we realized that the financial markets were looking for perhaps what we call the 20/20 rule. Are you familiar with that, Michael? Or are you trying to grow 20% and have a 20% margin or net? So top and bottom 20%.
That's interesting.
An idealistic number, but what are you hearing?
Well, for us, it's like you never really know what's going to happen next. COVID's a great example, and should something hit, something that disrupts the market that you're in, are you going to be able to, weather the storm? Are you going to be able to make it through? And will your previous investors continue to support you based on, the long-term sustainability of the company? So I just think that's something important we've done in the last couple of years, is just really focused on that. It was great feedback that we got from the investor community, was to just really look at our revenue and say, hey, can you sustain these margins and this growth rate at scale? And I think it was just something really important that we, learned along the path we've been on the last couple of years. And I think it's something important to kind of, have in the back of your mind at the beginning is, not only is this a good idea, but is this going to be a sustainable company? Is this going to be something here long term?
Okay. Can you, now that you've had some success I'd love for you to share with us what you consider to be one of your biggest successes so far. So, Pierce, I'm going to start with you. What's one of your biggest successes?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest success for our company was when we won the business of the world's largest pharmaceutical company. It was kind of early on in our product, and we weren't really positioned for the enterprise yet, but they saw the potential of what we could do. And we're just an amazing partner for us to work with that really helped us shape our product into something that could work in the enterprise, and ultimately is kind of the foundation for what we're selling to all of our enterprise clients now. So that was a huge win for us, and it really helped shape the future of the company.
So can I ask, was that something that were you going after this organization? Was that in your sights? Did you target that, or did it kind of fall into your lap?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like a 2 or 3 year process. Not something that we were going outbound on, but they had seen, I spoke at a conference that they were at, and then they kind of ended up in our database after signing up for something. And they reached out to us based on kind of all of those marketing touch points.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Michael, can you share with us one of your biggest successes, one of your biggest wins?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the biggest win really is the creation of our business model. So kind of prior to the launch of the company, I was renting out my personal RV, and we knew that people wanted to do this. We knew that this, the idea had legs, but there's no insurance product that existed, that you could not get insurance for a privately rented RV. And I think I really liked the way we went about it, and it worked really well. If you going to an insurance company and saying, hey, I have this great idea, I think you should invest $1 million into building an insurance product for us, not a likely win in that scenario. So we kind of built our MVP prior to going to the insurance industry. So we built out a very basic functioning website. We built our MVP. We got a couple of users. We got people interested in it. And then we went to the insurance industry and said, we have something built. This is going to work. Here's some data. Let's work together and build an insurance product. And we were fortunate enough to get a great partner with Intact Insurance, and they believed in us, liked our business model. We were not the first people to come to them looking for something, but we had taken that leap of faith and started to build out the MVP. So by far the biggest win, being able to establish ourselves first to market and to build that insurance product alongside a great partner, really allowed us to kind of scale really quickly and provide a great service to our customers.
That's awesome. And is that win with the insurance company with Intact, is that a differentiator for you, or is that a moat, or?
Well, I don't like calling it a moat. It's definitely a differentiator, being able to provide insurance. If you're going to rent out a $100,000 motorhome, you're going to want to be insured.
Absolutely.
But being with such a big provider like Intact, the largest insurance provider in Canada, it's certainly a differentiator, and has allowed us to, first to market, grow really rapidly just to get that scale, right? So now it's, we're going to own a certain portion of the market for a period of time. So it allowed us to have that initial blast and scale really quickly.
I think that's really cool, and I like that you went big. You thought big and you went big. But you did your homework before, but you went for the best. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's just really important to spend time on that MVP. Don't go out and spend $1 million to see if somebody wants to use your idea. Everything on our website, you pressed a button, we essentially got an email and got on the phone and helped convert customers. We just wanted to prove, does this business model work? Do people want to use it?
Cool. Jeff, love to hear from you. What about Relogic?
Yeah, there's been quite a few wins. I think resulting win, I'll tell you about how we got there in a second, but a big win for us is definitely signing global partnerships with Lenovo and Schneider Electric. Lenovo, we are one of the founding members of their brand new IoT service and solution offering that they offer globally. It's a huge push for the company. It's part of the company's future. The CEO of Lenovo talks frequently about this division of that's going to be the future of Lenovo, and we are one of the founding members of that partnership. They've selected us exclusively, and it's going to really pay dividends for us in 2021 in particular, because they just launched this in the last couple of months. Schneider Electric, similarly, but for different reasons. They are an established player in kind of commercial real estate, so the kind of the building, smart building level. And they're just starting to bring their solutions into the office, like into the building. And they we knocked out an incumbent that's been there several years. And we are now their workspace analytics partner.
Wow.
And that's very globally. And again, we're 25 people, and these are huge successes. And all of that, just from a momentum perspective, combine that, we just won the global RFP for Oracle. So like, these are huge kind of things. But what I want to talk real quick about is that these are outcomes, but it really, not to keep going back to people that we've talked a lot about now, but it really goes back to the fact that a great win for us that we hired just absolutely fantastic people. Where Andrew, who's the founder and the CEO, and myself, we don't have to be in every conversation. We can actually let go of things, and they're better at it than we are, and they just take it off. And we never would have put these deals, not in a million years, if we didn't have just a stellar kind of marketing BDR group, unbelievable, operations group. Like, we've just done these things with hiring great people that has allowed us to hit those accomplishments.
How important is it to you? I mean, I'd like to just go back to the partnerships that you created. I know that there's probably some startups out there going, well, how did you actually get in, how did you get their attention? How did you get connected with those organizations? Because would they struggle to make those connections and build those relationships? How did you actually do that?
Well, let me tell you, it was not overnight Lenovo was fairly quick. It was probably maybe 6 or 8 months from start to finish. Schneider was probably a couple of years. But really what it was that it was ongoing relationship building, where people trust you as people, not just the company. And for Andrew, the CEO and founder, he's the one that who was working with Schneider. I'm the one with Lenovo. But if I use Lenovo as an example, we got connected to Lenovo because as a company, we develop relationships with other players in our ecosystem, complementary solutions in particular. And they tell 2 friends, and next thing you know, I'm getting an introduction to the head of product management for the IoT group of Lenovo.
Okay.
And we hit it off, we developed trust. Always upfront about your warts as well as what you do well, right? We were very, very upfront because Schneider, for example, puts you through a very stressful quality process and a very stressful selection process, and they've helped us grow as a company, frankly. But it was really around stay in touch with your ecosystem players, your ecosystem partners, because you never know who can introduce you to whom. And so that's how Lenovo started. And Schneider was just a lot of hard work with Andrew over many, couple of years. And then again, our head of operations then took that relationship once it was started and made sure that we can pass all the tests and get through to the finish line. So the combination of those things.
Thanks, Jeff. If you just touched upon the fact that if you're going to scale your organization, you can't be doing everything. How important was it to your organization? We talked a lot about putting the right people in the right place, but you're going to hire some people who are not going to do it exactly the way you want it done. It's a struggle, right? I can relate. So how important is letting go and accepting maybe less than what you would do it like? How important it is to your organization? I'm going to start with you, Pierce.
Yeah, I think it's hugely important. You have to have the alignment of your team and also your customers at NAC. We're really focused. I'd like to say that we're a customer and product-led company, that it's really easy to like get distracted by the revenues and not think about, hey, what does my customer actually want here? And I think as we've grown, that's one thing that it does get a bit harder over time to stay focused on it. But that's something that we have kind of put as one of the top KPIs for our year, is not so much focused on the revenue, but actually like our culture ENPS, our customer NPS, and revenue is there, but it's actually like the last thing that we focus on.
So when you give them that focus, does that give you more comfort in letting go? Like, do you have you had to let go, you had to trust other people to get work done through them.
Yeah.
Having that structure, does that make it easier to let go, or are you still fretful? Do you still oversee things?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is just hiring people that you trust, or giving them the opportunity to trust, to earn your trust, right? So for me, I mean, I was fortunate, 2 of the people on our leadership team I've known for many years. We've worked together. I know what they're capable of. So I was someone who was there from like day one from the company, and he's definitely built that trust over time. So I fully trust all of them. And yeah, the quicker I get out of their way, the better usually.
Interesting. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, it's similar. I mean, what I do is I mean, what we've been doing is that we make sure that we're clear on what the desired outcome is, and then make yourself available as a sounding board, and turn yourself into the chief hurdle remover, right? Like I think those things are pretty important to do. Obviously, when you hire someone who you've not worked for before, you don't know yet, right? But I think when you have clarity on outcome, you make yourself available as a sounding board and mentorship, and you help remove hurdles for them. I think you have a pretty good recipe.
Cool. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I really like that point of being the hurdler mover. I really like to see kind of the diverse creative ideas that come through letting go, and letting go, especially on the creative process, because we've had some incredible conversations about, there's a million features that can be developed, and having that engaged audience and people that are passionate about the product because they are engaged to make decisions, and also providing an environment where people are allowed to fail, where they're allowed to make mistakes, and we can all kind of learn from it. I think everyone's human. We all make mistakes, and that just provides an environment of success where people feel that they have ownership over a particular problem, and they can come up with creative ideas, and we can all share in them together. It's definitely difficult letting go of your baby and letting go of the little pieces of the puzzle all over the place. But there's a lot of creative people out there. There's a lot of people with really interesting ideas. And I find it just really stimulates these amazing conversations regarding the product, marketing, retention, everything. So it's a constant balance and challenging, but just having that corporate environment within the company, I think has been a real enabler of the flow of ideas throughout.
I like the idea of allowing people to make mistakes, because everybody's going to do that. Sometimes you don't get the directions right. New employees, you find the right people, you trust them, you take the hurdles out of their way, you give them the resources that they need to do, and you got to let them fly and run.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think I'm hearing. So that's awesome. Tell us, how has COVID affected your business, and how have you managed through that? I mean, here you are, you're about to scale, and all of a sudden you got slammed in the head with a pretty wild new market out there. So how are you guys working through that? Michael, I assume that's affected you because you're B2C.
Yeah, this has been a roller coaster of a year. Being in the travel and tourism industry, we kind of have two different seasonalities. Yes, we have a seasonality of when the RVs go out on the road, but we also have a booking seasonality. People tend to book their vacations 3 to 6, 6 to 9 months in advance. So we kind of rely on and predict and forecast our revenue based on the bookings that we receive in the first 4 months of the year. So suddenly COVID hits and now no one's booking anything. There's no revenue coming in and there's mass cancellations. So definitely a huge strain on the cash flow and a lot of quick decisions that need to be made. And then we quickly started looking at, how can we pivot? How can we kind of contribute during this COVID? And what we ended up doing is we saw an opportunity with the thousands of RVs that we have all across the country. And we engaged with local hospitals, energy companies, frontline police officers, nurses, whoever needed a place to self-isolate. Our owners were providing the RVs to these people to self-isolate from their families so they can continue to work and be on the front lines. So it's kind of a really quick pivot and something we managed to do pretty quickly. And we ended up having, a couple hundred RVs out there just providing emergency accommodations. And then, we were pretty fortunate during this COVID time that, when travel and restrictions started to ease a bit, RVs just happened to be perfectly suited for self-isolated travel. You could still travel, you're self-contained, you have your cooking, washroom, all your facilities are there, and it provides an escape to the outdoors. So, we were definitely fortunate coming out of that first phase where we were still able to provide a service to our users and allow people to explore their own backyard.
That was awesome. Great story, especially, thinking about others first, really understanding your user base and just thinking about others first. That was awesome. Jeff, how did you guys fare through COVID? What was your biggest one?
It's certainly been challenging, no question. The first thing we did when the lockdown started is that we wanted to add value to our current customers as quickly as possible. So when you have a pretty awesome, engineering and data team, it took about probably 3 or 4 days, and we provided all of our customers with a COVID-19 management dashboard where they can monitor occupancy by floors, by region, by geography. The concept around clustering, where people had to go to work because they might have been an essential worker, were they sitting beside each other, were they not safe distancing, and then the concept around safe seats, right? Which seats have been used and which ones should have cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So we just took our data and we just kind of reconfigured it to show a different viewpoint, and so our customers were ecstatic. A, how quickly we were able to turn that around, and B, they have the ability now to kind of figure out, because as you know, COVID was kind of city to city, state to state, country to country. And so they can set targets, see if they were happening, et cetera. And so that's what we did right away to take care of our existing customers. I'd say that the two key challenges right now is that our technology. The good news is our technology is hyper relevant right now, because not only about the COVID back to work safely, but right now companies got to figure out how to rationalize all the space they don't need, the space that they do need. What's the right design? Is it going to be more about collaboration now, so our technology is perfect for that, right? The challenge is that we're in what we call sales jello, right? So our pipeline is bigger than it's ever been. In fact, our pipeline right now is 3x our last year's revenue. Huge deal, big brand, multi-year contracts, and then they get to the finish line, they've committed, and then they're trying to figure out when's their back to work date at different locations, and they're going to say, well, we'll get going with logic, say 90 days before that or 60 days before that. So without knowing that first date, they kind of, everything has been snowplowing a bit to the right. So the good news is that it's never been healthier. And when it does open, it's going to be, our biggest challenge is going to be satisfying the demand. And we certainly close deals, of course, but there's this bulge happening in our pipeline, and it's all kind of coming to the finish line. So once we get out of this air pocket, it's going to be, we're going to be a tremendous place. But that's definitely been a challenge is sales pushing to the right when there's just such uncertainty about what's going on in their office space.
Interesting. I imagine it affects a lot of organizations where people are not making that decision. They're just hesitating, right? Because nobody knows what's going to happen, especially with the election as well. So
because before it was the head of corporate real estate that made all the decisions, and now it's the CFO or the CEO who's making the decision. So it's skipped up, so now the budget approval has got to go through another level. And and the good news is that we're getting all kinds of business. The bad news is that we're waiting for it to get past that finish line.
Well, good luck with that, Jeff. I hope that things change for you. Pierce, how has COVID affected your organization, and what adjustments have you made?
Yeah, so I think as soon as it happened, we reached out to all of our customers to see how they were doing, right? Some of them were totally fine. Some were impacted positively. Some were negatively impacted, right? So the ones that were negatively impacted, and we're fortunate that it was very few of our customers, but we said, hey, if they can't pay the subscription, let's be flexible with them. Let's extend it out. And so we tried to help them in that way. For us as a company, I think it was hard. About half of our company is remote. And so we would do twice a year, we get the whole company together to do like an offsite somewhere for a week where it's, it's business, but we also get to know each other and build those outside of work relationships. So we haven't been able to do that. And then there was a big group of us who were still working in my basement, and we were like before COVID, very like close to each other. Everyone was fully aligned. We all knew what each other were doing. And COVID, I think, kind of slowed us down a little bit. So we're fortunate as well in this scenario from the market perspective, because, marketing departments had a lot of money in trade shows and events, and they couldn't do any of that this year. And one channel to be able to reach your audience is definitely email. So I think we benefited from that, and our platform is kind of uniquely positioned to help with that collaboration so that people can work like they've never left the office.
So obviously we don't know when things are going to go back to whatever normal is, but we know for sure that there's been a disruptive force and things have changed probably forever. People's business practices, your buying practices, just how you interact has changed probably forever now. So keeping that in mind, I'd like to ask you as an organization, what are going to be your biggest priorities going forward? How are you going to continue? What's your focus going to be around building success? Who's ready to start with that one?
I can take a stab at that one.
All right.
So we're kind of in a unique position with COVID. I think we've seen, worldwide that travel has certainly changed. The flights to Italy and Spain and Greece, just haven't happened this year, and the trends are kind of looking that is going to be the slowest recovery. So for us, we took a bit of that opportunity and the uptick in the RV travel market. And so we've now expanded into the American market. You're looking at about a 10-15 times the size of the Canadian market. So really an opportunity for the company. So priorities moving forward is really understanding the new market. Although, yes, we are very similar to our neighbors to the south, there's a lot of differences. So what we're finding out is a lot of things that worked really well in Canada are not working well in the US. So I think it's just, being a little bit humble and understanding that this is kind of going back a couple of years and going back to the drawing boards and remember the processes and the iterations that we did to achieve what we did in Canada and building that into our American expansion. So definitely challenging and for the company, definitely position ourselves. And this is what I love about our business model is post-COVID, there's going to be a lot of this local travel. And when you're renting an RV through our platform, you're stimulating those local economies. That money is going directly back into the small towns and the pockets of everyday Canadians, right? So it's really going to be around our messaging, our branding, and really just getting out there showing that vacation and travel is still possible post-COVID, and it can be done in a safe and economical way.
Okay. So your focus will be expansion, and
Exactly.
it will be, you know, taking a step back and remembering that you have to get product market fit first, right? Your minimal viable product for the market you're going after, testing that out, going back and to old school, I guess, to your.
And what makes it very different is, you know, we started this industry in Canada, right? We were the first to the market. We are now going into the American market with well-established competitors that have been there for years, that provide a great product, that have lots of funding. You know, how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we find product market fit in the American market? And
you will go back to your product management principles and figure that out before you jump in, I assume.
And it's a lot of iteration, right? It's the things that you think may work may not work.
Absolutely. Well, that's interesting. Good luck with the American market. I hope you knock it out of the park, Michael. Jeff.
Yeah.
Relogics. What is your priority going forward, especially in the new climate?
You know, two key priorities. One is that by focusing on our channel partnerships, we now, and because of our hardware certified in all these different countries, we can now focus in on markets where COVID's on the downswing, right? So fortunately, we're able now to sell, like we've closed new deals in New Zealand, we've closed new deals in Australia, we've closed new deals in Singapore, we've closed new deals, and there's a deployment just happened in Japan. And so what's been happening is that, so that's a key focus of ours, is really, it's kind of, you're kind of following the bouncing ball, where because of our channel partnerships, we can literally get very strategic into the state level, the county level, wherever. And so focus on where it's most likely to get a quicker sale, because things are starting to return back to normal. And then the other side of that, the other key focus is that we've been putting more and more emphasis on our data platform. And we're launching in the next few weeks where we can actually sell software to new customers without hardware, without our sensors. The sensors can come in as a phase 2 or even a phase 3 by collecting the data that they have from other sources. Badging, could be HR data, booking data, and combining that data to provide different insights that they don't currently have, and then make sensors like the phase 2 or even the phase 3. So providing them value where they can make a decision, it's a lower price point, it helps them get a baseline of data, and they don't, no one, it can just be turned on, right? No one has to go on site to deploy. It's an easier purchase, basically, to add value right away, and thereby getting through this sales yellow.
Interesting. So a little bit of a pivot there from a sensor organization to a data organization, and driving that focus forward.
Yeah, we 100% position ourselves as a data organization. Sensors is a means to an end.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, Jeff.
Thank you.
And Pierce, last but not least.
Yeah.
What are your biggest priorities going forward?
Yeah, so for us, like our projections this year, it looks like we will double our amount of employees. And so a big priority for us is how do we do that with the right people and make sure that our culture remains strong as we continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the biggest priority for us. We're doing a few things around that, from, you know, different questions that we put in our interview process that are really like culture-driven questions, just how we're doing our interviews, and everything from like our job descriptions to our interviews and getting people on board. So that's probably our biggest priority this year. And then I'd say the other one is, right now we're very strong in one particular marketing automation space. What we want to do is really diversify that across other marketing automation platforms. We also have very strong brands in some of those pockets, but not others. So that's another strategic initiative for us, so that we can really be a more balanced platform.
Well, good luck with that priority too. It sounds like you're very people-centric. Like you say, you don't just talk the talk, you walk the talk. Very customer and very employee-centric. And your focus seems to remain there, so that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any parting words of wisdom to somebody that has been, is, or about to be in your shoes? And I assume that there are a lot of startups that want to get to the scale up size. So give you a moment to think about it, but if you had to part some wisdom before we go, what would it be? Anybody ready?
I'll go first.
Okay,
go ahead.
Jeff,
Sorry. I thought you were waiting for hands.
Go ahead, Jeff. I
was going to say, I think what's really helpful is that a lot of companies can get really enamored with their own technology, and they really love what they're doing, and they love it, and therefore they always have rose-colored glasses, right? So I think it's really important to create an environment in your organization where healthy debates produce sound decisions, right? If you have 4 people in a room and everyone agrees on everything all the time, someone probably shouldn't be in that room, right? You really need to make sure that you're not looking at things very myopically. You're trying to step back as much as possible. Welcome dissenting opinions, right? Make that a priority of your people as you hire them, right? Make sure that they know that their role is to not just say yes or I agree. Their role is to provide open and honest feedback about what's happening. Because if you can create an environment where there's a freedom to have healthy debates, I promise you, sound decisions comes out the other end of that.
Great advice, Jeff. Awesome. Michael, are you next?
Sure, I'll jump in. I guess parting kind of words is do things that don't scale. We talk a lot about scaling and everything. Over the years, some of the best ideas we've come up with were from basic ideas that were done a manual process, and then found out that, yes, this is helping the business move along. And then we figure out, how do we scale this process? So whether it's calling all of your customers and wishing them a Merry Christmas, right? And learning from your customers, that yields stuff that's going to feed directly into your business and your product and how you can make improvements. So I'm definitely a big proponent of that, is try new things, get out there and try it. You don't need to invest a lot of money to do that. Get on the phone and learn about your customers, and then you can kind of iterate and scale from there.
Great idea. Take an idea and see if you can scale it, especially if it's working. Awesome. Pierce.
Yeah. So I would say, just you don't need to know everything, and become comfortable with saying, like, I don't know the answer to that. I think once I really embraced that and also had a bunch of advisors who could help me fill in the gaps in different places, it's a huge weight off your shoulder, and you get things done quicker. So instead of wasting time trying to figure something out yourself, being able to just tap someone else who has that knowledge and you can bring it in. And we definitely got a lot from that through Invest Ottawa and our mentors that we had there, whether it's finance or HR issues that we would have wasted like weeks or months of time on. It's like a 5-minute conversation and we can keep going.
That's interesting. So what you're saying, you have to kind of park the ego. Everybody knows you're smart, and get out there and ask other people who've been there and done that, right? It's a much faster path to get, right?
Yeah, I think the most confident business people that I've met, they're also the quickest to say, like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. Like, talk to this person.
That's so true. And being able to just and work in an environment where you're not expected to know everything as well. As you said, you can make mistakes, where you can try things that might not scale to start, but you can figure it out. Like giving them that sort of environment, I think a lot of it comes down today from what we talked about from a scaling point of view is you need the right people and you need the right environment for them to grow, because they're going to help you grow. It's not just about the product. I heard a lot of that today. And it's not just about the revenue. It's not just about the money. It's about really being authentic with what you're doing. So I don't see any other questions that I need to cover today. And I think I've kept you way beyond the allotted time. So I will say maybe I have to turn this back over to Liam at this point. But I'd like to thank all three of you, and I wish you success. And I hope that we can continue to be connected after this event. So,
Great.
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yes, that was fantastic. You can send your clap emojis and your heart emojis in the emojis just below me. That was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that panel from all of you. And yes, there should be a line up at the top of your screen about networking beginning shortly. That is exactly what's going to happen. We have just reached kind of the end of the panel part, which we had the keynote, we had the panel. Sorry, everybody, I disappeared there for a second. We are just getting ready to jump into our networking session now. I'm going to be there, and a few of our other speakers will hopefully be there too. So if you want to speak with someone from the event or one of the other amazing attendees, please do that. So I'm just going to say a few lines. We're going to jump into that. You'll see prompts on your screen to join in right here on venue.live. Again, Canadian company, very excited to be working with them. Before we go, I'd like to thank our sponsors again, our scale sponsors, the Trade Commissioner Service and Canadian Technology Accelerators, and Simple Story, our Grow sponsors, Logan Katz, National Bank, and Telfer School of Management, our build sponsor, Shopify, and finally, our launch sponsors, MDK, MNP, Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, and Carleton University. Thank you to all those amazing sponsors. Thank you to our amazing speakers. All of you did fantastic today. Andrea, Ann, Donna, Pierce, Jeff, and Michael, you did fantastic, and we thank you so much for what you've done. I'm excited to work with you all in the future. And as well, we have a survey in the chat. So please let us know how we did with this event. We want to improve moving forward. We want to do more and bigger events for all of you. So please, please check out that. And don't forget, next Thursday, we have another one of these, the final AccelerateOTT virtual session of 2020. Tune back in to hear another amazing keynote and from another amazing panel of entrepreneurs about remote work, keeping your ENPS up, and how you can help your employees stay satisfied. And with that, let's jump into the networking. I've been Liam Flanagan, your host MC. Thank you to everyone who's helped out today, and you should now receive prompts on your screen to jump into networking. We're not going to come back here. We're going to be done after that.